Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this Monday, April 26, 2021. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, and welcome you here. Hope you had a great weekend. I want to let you know if you ever want to just call and get a weather forecast, you can do it through 1-800-472-0391. Or better yet, go online. There's all sorts of information at weather.gov/Alaska. Well, taking a look at this past weekend, I hope you got out. Many areas enjoyed sunshine and just some very warm afternoon temperatures. This scene was caught at daybreak Saturday morning by Rob H. He's near Homer, Alaska, and out doing a little fishing. Certainly a beautiful morning, and it's been that way for like the last week and a half. Well, with this warmer weather, also we're anticipating the river breakup, and this is where we stand now. We continue to see areas, the ice open up on a number of rivers, especially across the southern half of the state. But again, we still need reports because many of these locations are rather remote, and if you do live near one of these rivers and have access to see them, whether you're flying or actually on the ground, any type of report, a photo, or any video would be very helpful. At this point, we are seeing the Tanana as well as the Nanana rivers developing some openings there as they head toward the Yukon, and then also the southern Kuskokwim. So we'll continue to watch things, but at least at nighttime readings are getting below freezing, so that slows down the melting. Hopefully we'll have a more gradual breakup than anything too sudden. Well, taking a look at what we need from you, we need your help. So if you do have a river report, you can send pictures or videos or any type of written or verbal communication, and that's through nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov, or you can call 1-800-847-1739, and our hydrologists would be happy to hear from you to get a river report, because that helps them in their decision making and their forecast, and potentially decisions on whether or not they'll need to issue any type of warnings. So as it goes, we do have a number of advisories and even a watch in effect now. We have a winter weather advisory for blowing snow remaining up there along the Arctic coast, Prudhoe Bay on over to Katuvik. And then to the south, we have tonight into tomorrow afternoon wind advisory in effect for the areas, the highlands there north of Fairbanks, along Yukon River at Bettles, Fort Yukon there. I could see some stronger gusty winds. And then south of Fairbanks, there is a fire weather watch for tomorrow morning through Tuesday afternoon. And this is in response to some stronger east-northeast winds along a backdoor cold front. And with the dry conditions in place, it's actually meeting the conditions that would warrant a fire weather watch, because it does create high fire danger. So keep that in mind, no burning down those areas as things are drying out. And this is a perfect setup. I'll be able to show you a little better when I can show you the surface weather maps. Well, here we have satellite imagery, and we continue to see that moisture out over the Gulf of Alaska lifting northeastward. The center of low pressure remains south of the Alaska Peninsula there in the North Pacific. It's the one that had brought some rain showers there across the southwest up into Kodiak Island this weekend, and continues to do so, with the next better push of moisture going to be moving into the southeast peninsula here as we go through tomorrow and especially Wednesday and Thursday. In the northwest, we continue to watch a cold front cross far eastern Russia, and that is going to be moving into the northwest portions of the state along the northwest and western coast as we head into Wednesday. And then further southwest, there is an area of low pressure south of the western Aleutians, but that's still a ways away. And more importantly, we're watching to see what's going to happen with that backdoor cold front, bringing in some colder air there just to the north and northeast of Juneau, kind of butting up against the coastal mountains there. So precipitation, as it runs into that colder air, will be turning to snow, whereas the inner coastal waterways and the southeast coastline will stay rain at the low elevations, but could be a little bit of snow thrown in there at Juneau Not a storm, but enough to just remind you it just isn't quite summer yet, though a lot of people were hopeful of that given the weather we've had here over the past week. So there's that backdoor cold front sagging southward from out of northwest Canada, bringing stronger, gustier winds from the Arctic coast into the eastern interior. And then low pressure sitting there in the northern Pacific with an occluded front and some bands of primarily light rain rotating around it. And you can see off to the northwest in eastern Russia, there's the cold front that will eventually be making its way into the northwest coast. And as we go through Tuesday, we are looking for that colder air to continue to press southward there into the southeast peninsula, right up there along the coastal mountains with high pressure behind it. As that occluded front lifts northeastward with the moisture into the southeast coast tomorrow. And then the cold front there moving into from the Arctic Ocean all the way down to the northwest Bering, and that will be having a little bit of light snow along it. And then you'll see the areas of rain along the western Aleutians in response to a little stronger low pressure that's going to be sitting southwest of and south of them as we go through the midweek. But there's that Arctic cold front in the northwest with a band of some light snow showers, little gustier winds along it. And then kind of a couple areas of low pressure, one lifting up with that moisture across the southeast, and then back toward the west there in the North Pacific. There's the remnants of that particular low pressure that's just kind of spinning there all weekend long. So here is what we have for temperatures coming up Tuesday morning. Lows generally above freezing across the southeast. As you get into the interior, though, of the southeast, readings will get down below freezing. And as we get on over toward the Kenai, readings along the coast will generally be in the mid-upper 30s, 41 there at Kodiak. And as we go through the day tomorrow, afternoon highs will be back up into the 50s, Talkeetna 58, 54 at Anchorage, lower 50s along the Kenai. But readings across the southeast will generally hold mid-upper 40s for highs. And as we go into Wednesday morning, we are looking for lows across the southeast to get down close to freezing there, Skagway on down toward Juneau. 40s, lower 40s there towards Ketchikan, and then as we head into the eastern interior, readings will get well below freezing down into the 20s. And looking at most readings in the interior below freezing, whereas along the coastal areas in the 30s. And highs on Wednesday afternoon generally in the mid-upper 40s, though still up near 50 there in the southern end of the southeast peninsula. And generally low mid-50s as we look at the interior, whereas along the coast, readings upper 40s to around 50 degrees. Arctic coast will see readings down into the single digits along the immediate Arctic coast to 10 above. And then as we go through the Yukon Valley, readings generally in the teens and some 20s south of there, so that'll help slow the melting that has been occurring, especially through the Yukon and the Tanana region. And as we go into Tuesday afternoon, highs will be in the 20s along the Arctic coast. And then as we go through the Yukon Valley, 40s to near 50 degrees, still getting up to about 50 there at Fairbanks. And then as we head into Wednesday morning, readings will generally be high single digits and lower teens there along the Arctic coast. 20s, teens though into the interior, and 20s elsewhere. And then high temperatures along the coast, still below freezing, generally in the 20s. Whereas along the Yukon River, we'll see highs getting back up into the 40s to a few lower 50s showing up. And working our way across the southwest, we are looking for high temperature, or morning lows rather, to be down into the mid-30s. Areas extending out along the Aleutians will generally be in the mid and upper 30s. And as we go through Tuesday afternoon, we are looking for highs to generally still reach the lower 50s at places like McGrath and even down toward Dillingham. And then as we head out over the Aleutians, temperatures will stop generally in the lower 40s as we would expect, just being surrounded by the water. And for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, low temperatures in the interior will generally get below freezing along the coastal areas from Kodiak down through the southwest peninsula. we're looking for lows near 40 degrees, but generally getting down into the mid-upper 30s, extending through the Aleutian chain. And as we go through Wednesday afternoon, high temperatures across the interior again will still manage to get back up in the lower 50s, whereas areas of the far western coast there will stay generally in the 30s as we get toward Nome. And then as we drop down along the Aleutian chain, we look for highs to generally just be confined to the lower 40s. So that does it for a check there of our weather going through midweek. Again, temperatures not quite as warm as what we've seen here over the past week and a half, but nevertheless, kind of more typical spring-like weather. So enjoy.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's time now for our aviation weather segment, and as we look into the day tomorrow on Tuesday, flying weather. We'll see an area of IFR conditions extending from around Kodiak Island out into the Gulf of Alaska associated with low pressure and an occluded front. Meanwhile, elsewhere there will be areas of MVFR, especially across the southwest and through the Bering, and pockets as we head up to the north from Norton Sound on up to at least the western portion of the Brooks Range. And going into Tuesday afternoon, we'll see that IFR conditions creeping northward up into the southeast peninsula, with areas of IFR lingering around Kodiak Island back along the southwest peninsula and the far western Aleutians. Into Wednesday, there will be that frontal boundary, that occluded front that lifts a little more north into the northern Gulf of Alaska and in through the southeast with a band of IFR conditions. Also in the far northwest, there is a cold front and weak area of low pressure that will push some IFR conditions into the northwest from Kotzebue Sound a little northward, and then also portions of mainly the western half of the Aleutians. And by Wednesday afternoon, we'll still see some areas of IFR in the southeast, as well as along areas of south central coastline, including along the Kenai, Prince William Sound to Yakutat, just west of Yakutat, and then also up there in the northwest, Kotzebue on up toward Wainwright. And then looking at past conditions on Tuesday, Anaktuvuk will enjoy VFR conditions, as will Adigan. And as we drop more toward the south and southwest, Lake Clark and Merrill remain VFR. And that'll be the case for Tuesday and rainy, as well as at Windy and Isabel passes. As we get a little farther east, Mentasta will be in a little area of MVFR through the bulk of the day on Tuesday, whereas Tanita should become VFR, and Portage will also remain VFR. And as we go into the northern portion of the southeast, Chilkoot and White passes will see VFR conditions become MVFR during the afternoon. Freezing levels, well, we had that warm dome of high pressure over us much of last week and this weekend. That's beginning to erode. So freezing levels not quite as high as they've been, but still above 6,000 feet across portions of the southwest. And as you get out toward the central Aleutians, you have freezing levels above 6 to around 8,000 feet. Also out over the Gulf of Alaska, freezing levels are generally above 4,000 and 6,000 feet. And icing potential generally between 6,000 and 14,000 feet over the southwest peninsula, Kodiak Island, and also as some precipitation begins to move in there into the southeast, especially latter half of Tuesday. And there could be pockets above 4,000 feet for some isolated icing there along the Brooks Range and to the south there toward the Yukon River. And then looking at the upper level jet stream winds, strongest over southeast Alaska, upwards to 110 knot winds aloft from the southwest at Haida Gwaii. And out over the southwest peninsula, winds are out of the east up to 60 knots. And then we see them turning northeasterly there, the eastern Aleutians 70 knots. And another area of enhanced winds coming out of eastern Russia, but trailing off to the northwest at about 40 knots over the west and northwest coast. Dropping down to 9,000 feet, we see in the southeast winds 40, 45 knots from the southwest. Across the Kodiak Island in the southwest into the eastern Aleutians, winds generally from the east, northeast at about 35 to 40 knots. Whereas some higher winds coming up from the south, east and south over the western half of the Aleutians, upwards to 60 knots. And then as we get down to 3,000 feet, we are looking light winds across the interior, but the Gulf of Alaska, southeast winds up to 45 knots. And out over the southwest peninsula, eastern Aleutians, winds out of the northeast at about 35 knots, with the strongest winds out of the southeast to south, upwards of 45 to 60 knots there, the western half of the Aleutians. And finally, a quick check of turbulence. We could see some isolated areas of turbulence, some considerable moderate turbulence in pockets below 6,000 feet there in east central Alaska. Also below 5,000 feet in the southeast as we get down toward Ketchikan, and portions of the southwest below 4,000 feet and below 3,000 feet from the eastern Aleutians extending back toward the west. So that does it for your aviation weather. Have a safe flight.
So the sun, looking here from the ground, seems very constant and quiet. But actually, when we look at it from space, we can see it's quite turbulent and active. Space weather is activity on the sun and in a near-Earth space that can affect our technological infrastructure and society. The sun is constantly spewing out a stream of particles called the solar wind that goes out into the solar system. And it affects us here near Earth, where we're protected by a magnetic field. The interaction between the solar wind and the magnetic field can cause space weather. The Carrington event is the largest storm we've seen in recorded history when we're looking at space weather. But every solar cycle, which repeats about every 11 years, one estimate estimates that there's a 10% chance of getting a large storm like the Carrington event that could impact us here on Earth. But we see solar storms almost all the time. And these storms have an effect on our technological infrastructure. Solar storms can cause activity in Earth's atmosphere and magnetosphere that can damage electrical power grids that power our communities, interrupt radio and satellite communications, and can cause our GPS navigation to fail. NOAA is working with its international partners to ensure that we have different vantage points where we can observe space weather. Our space weather observing infrastructure from space includes the NOAA Discover satellite and the NASA ACE satellite that are stationed upstream of Earth to give us a first buoy measurement of the solar wind. It also includes the ESA-NASA SOHO satellite and the NASA Stereo satellite that image the sun and also make coronagraph measurements of the outer atmosphere of the sun, the corona, that can tell us when large explosions happen off the sun. We also observe the sun and the Earth's magnetic field from the geostationary location with NOAA's GOES. So the way we use the space weather information from satellites and from the ground is to be able to make forecasts and predictions, just like we do with hurricanes and terrestrial weather. We observe the sun and look for activity and see how it develops, and see if it's going to culminate into a large explosion that can affect us here on Earth. NOAA is working with its international partners to expand our observing capability. We're committed to observing along the Sun-Earth line. So we're going to do the imaging of the sun and the upstream buoy measurements of the solar wind along the Sun-Earth axis. The more we understand about the sun, the more we can prepare for it and become, just like we are a weather-ready nation, become a space weather-ready nation. And as we look forward to humans exploring out into the solar system and advancing our space commerce activities, space weather becomes more and more important.
Every morning, millions of Americans wake up with the same question: what's the weather going to be today? All day, every day, weather information is updated to create timely and reliable forecasts around the country. But where do weather predictions come from? Every weather forecast begins with millions of bits of NOAA data. NOAA weather satellites observe the Earth's clouds and atmosphere from space. These satellites continuously scan the surface of the Earth, collecting data about the atmosphere, land, and ocean. The data is transmitted to NOAA's Satellite and Information Service, where a team of scientists and supercomputers process it through complex algorithms. Weather forecasts rely on data from satellites combined with measurements from the land, sea, and sky. The information is fed into weather models that run a series of complex equations used to predict future weather patterns. NOAA's National Weather Service then analyzes this data. NOAA provides weather data and information to the public and private sector, who all use free, reliable NOAA data in their forecasts, which come to you through your local TV station or wherever you get your news. We all depend on this information in our daily lives. Every weather forecast begins with NOAA data.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, thinning out there from Nunivak Island to St. Matthew Island, kind of pushing up to the north there and continuing to slowly thin along the southwest coast, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast, south of St. Matthew Island or St. Lawrence Island, eastern Norton Bay about the same as yesterday, and still doing a slow dissolve northern Cook Inlet. And for the coastal water forecasts, there we go. For Tuesday, tomorrow, north winds gusting to 40 knots for Lynn Canal, 25 knot northerly Stevens Passage, southeast 25 for Clarence Strait, south coast, south to southeast winds 25 to 30 knots, 12-foot seas. Gale warnings on the north coast for easterlies at 35 knots with 12-foot seas. And then for, Wednesday, north 25, small craft advisories continue for Lynn Canal with higher gusts, and northeast 15 for Stevens Passage, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait. East-southeast 15 to 20 knots on the south coast, and east-southeast or south to east winds 25 to 30 knots on the north coast, seas around 10 feet. Cook Inlet, light northeast winds, north to northeast 10 knots. Same thing for Prince William Sound and Kamishak Bay. All pretty light, 10 knots, seas 2 feet or less. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast for 25 knot winds. Barren Islands, northeast 25 knots with 8-foot seas. Outlook for Wednesday. Barren Islands, east 20 knots, 8-foot seas, and east-northeast 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Kamishak Bay east at 15. Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, northeast at 10, seas 2 feet or less. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, northeast 25 to 30 knots, and for the Alaska Peninsula, northerly winds 25 to 30 knots with the small craft advisories on the Pacific side of the peninsula, and Bristol Bay northeast at 15. And then for Wednesday, Bristol Bay, even lighter winds north at 10, seas pretty slight at 2 feet, and north 15 to 20 knots through the Alaska Peninsula. Kodiak Island and Castle Cape through Shelikof Strait, northeast 20 knots, east side of Kodiak Island, east at 20 with 8-foot seas. Fox Islands tomorrow, northerlies 25 to 30 knots, 7 to 13-foot seas. Small craft advisories for 25 knot winds, Adak and Atka. East 20 for Amchitka Island. Gale warnings, Kiska to Shimia, southeast 35 knots, 13-foot seas. Become northeast at 30 knots, and seas even higher at 18 feet for the area from Shimia to Kiska. Amchitka, east 25 knots, 15-foot seas. 15 to 20 knot easterly winds for Adak and Atka on Wednesday. Fox Islands, not too bad. Northeast or north-northeast or east-northeast at 10 to 15 knots with 5 to 9-foot seas. Southwest coast, northerlies 20 to 25 knots, strongest along the Yukon Delta coast there north of Nunivak Island. Pribilos, north 25, north 20 for St. Matthew Island. North 15, St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, northerlies at 20 with 4-foot seas. And then for Wednesday, back to small craft advisories for St. Lawrence Island, north at 25, seas 4 feet. North 20 for the southwest coast, seas 2 to 3 feet. North 20 St. Matthew Island with 5-foot seas, and the Pribilofs, north 15, seas 4 feet. Gale warnings on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, for Tuesday, for from roughly Barter Island, Kaktovik or so eastward to Demarcation Point, 35 knot winds, otherwise 25 knots out of the southeast for the east side. Central coast southeast at 20, light variable winds 5 to 10 knots for the western Arctic coast. And moving on to Wednesday, looks like this, 30 knot winds there, Kaktovik to Demarcation Point, otherwise 20 knot winds eastern Beaufort Sea coast, central and west side east at 10, then 25 knot northwest winds from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And for tonight, pretty windy up there from the east northeast interior to the across the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast. Areas of blowing snow, reducing visibilities at times. Otherwise, lighter winds both to the south and west, and a few clouds, but dry conditions. Rain starts to increase and push in toward the central and south coast of the Panhandle. Periods of rain for Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, light rain, dry with clearing skies, some clearing for the Aleutians, central Aleutians. Next system coming in tomorrow, tightening the gradient up Shimmy and Attu, slowly moving eastward, otherwise high pressure and nice conditions for the Bering Sea. And a system, another Arctic low, spreading snow into the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula. Sunny and dry over the interior, rain for the Panhandle, big change there. And warm front spreads another round of moisture into the southern Panhandle as areas of showers continue from the North Gulf Coast on Wednesday. Stays mostly clear over the central and eastern interior, and that cold front, Arctic front, pushing a band of light snow from the western Arctic coast all the way down to Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta. Otherwise, the front kind of hung up over the western Aleutians, keeps it unsettled and breezy out there. Variably cloudy, but not too bad for the eastern Aleutians into Bristol Bay, as well as the central interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.